My name is Melky, and I had only one task, to get the gifts of destiny to a child king of an ancient prophecy, which, by the way, was not as easy as it sounds. The whereabouts of this mystery child was known only to the stars. Literally. To find this child, we had to follow the alignment of 3 stars identified in the prophecy. To tell the truth, I don't know much about stars. At least I didn't when we started this journey, so it's good Balta was with me. You'll have heard of her, famous astrologer that she is. Anyway, I was her apprentice, and for a year we traveled together across the eastern reach, sleeping by day, moving on by night, led by our 3 guides in the night sky, Regulus, Orion, and Daster. When we approached the checkpoint at the border in the Western Territories, my heart was pounding wildly. The checkpoint was patrolled by 2 soldiers. I could tell from their uniforms that they had trained with the Empire's Turquoise Guard. Balta put on her old woman disguise and hid the gifts under her cloak. We'll never get the gifts past this roadblock.
We will if we stick to the plan, Melky. Just do as we've practiced.
State your business. My name is Melky. You will know her. And you and I travel today. She's the famous astrologer. Balta is I'm her apprentice.
I didn't ask who you are. I asked about your business.
We are on a mission, an important one. We have information for King Magnus in the capital.
I've heard of no such mission. What's in your bag?
Just my telescope and our maps. I'll open it if you like.
Don't bother. What's with the old lady? Doesn't she talk?
Please, sir. She's deaf and her eyesight is poor.
And yet she's on the Empire's business?
Well,
shut up. Any more bags?
No, sir. No, sir.
What's under her cloak? I thought you said you didn't have any more bags. Open it up.
Please, sir. We've been on the road for months without stopping to do laundry. Trust me, you don't want to look inside that bag.
I'll decide what to do and don't want to do. Bring me the bag.
We were awesome. Balta escaped with the gifts. Our plan worked. Well, sort of. I was captured, which wasn't really part of the plan. But hey, that's okay. Sometimes you have to take one for the team. The young soldier tied my hands behind my back before taking off after Balta. He was furious that he had been outsmarted by a woman. I was left with the old guy. He cut my bindings loose. Guess he figured there was nowhere for me to run. The 2 of us headed towards the dungeons of King Magnus, across the Valley of Salt. You heard me right, the Valley of Salt. It's the most feared and desolate place in the Western Territories. It's cursed. Everyone knows it. The salt turns living things into salt statues. Rabbits, snakes, birds. Even people. Some say the curse enters its victims through their eyes. The old guard was kind enough. He told me to tie a blindfold around my eyes. As we rounded the sea of death, I peeked out from under my blindfold. I hardly dare tell you what I saw. Skulls, human skulls, washing up on the shore. It wasn't until nightfall that we left that horrible valley floor. We climbed high up the valley wall onto the far side and slept in a cave filled with bats. The next morning, we crossed over the perilous mountains, passing through 2 of the 7 snow-capped peaks that surround the capital. Walled and heavily guarded, the capital is home to King Magnus and his grey dragon, Thu. I was thrown into a prison cell in the palace dungeons. It was the loneliest night of my life. What if King Magnus condemns me to the chasm? I knew the skulls I'd seen washed up on the shore of the Sea of Death were the remains of prisoners made to walk the chasm. I laid in the darkness and couldn't sleep. Would I ever see Balta again? Would the gifts of destiny ever reach the Child King? I'd been trusted with one task and I'd failed. But Balta says the true journey is the journey of the heart and only really begins when you can no longer see the road ahead. Sure enough, late the next day, the gate to the cell next to mine rattled open. A new prisoner was pushed inside. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Balta. We hugged each other through the bars. Of course, the first thing I did was ask about the gifts. Where were they? She told me that before her capture in the Valley of Salt, she managed to hide them in an unmarked cave. The gifts were safe. At first my heart leapt with gratitude. Then, just as quickly, it sank with despair. How would we ever find them again? We were running out of time. The stars were aligned, pointing the way to a village in census region number 9. Yet, here we were, without the gifts, locked up in an Empire dungeon. The prisoners around us told us we would languish for years before being granted an audience with the king. So you can imagine our surprise when, the very next morning, Balta and I were summoned to the throne room. I had read about the turquoise throne my whole life, one of the 4 thrones put in place by the Empire after the conquest of the Earthlands. On this throne sat King Magnus himself, and at his feet, the fiercest of the Empire's dragons, Thu. I shuddered.
So you are Balta, the famous astrologer from the Eastern Reach.
I am, Your Highness.
And you? Your first trip to the Empire, I assume?
Yes, Your Highness.
Magnificent, isn't it? I'm curious to hear your first impressions.
Well, Your Highness, all I've had to go on is the inside of a jail cell, which on a scale of 1 to 10...
Don't get smart with me, kid. I want you to listen to me, and I want you to listen well. When the Empire first conquered the Earthlands, do you know what they found? Poverty and lawlessness. and ignorance everywhere. And who do you think turned all that around? Who do you think introduced law and order where there was none? Who do you think built schools and taught the people to read? The Empire. Who do you think laid down the extensive network of roadways connecting the sensuous regions? The Empire. Who do you think established the trade network that brings food and water to the towns in the Western Territories? The Empire, the Empire, the Empire.
Yes, Your Highness, I'm sure your subjects are full of gratitude and admiration.
Cheeky imp. Perhaps it's her I should keep to guarantee your return until you find this child king that you speak of.
With all due respect, Your Highness, Melfi helped me with the maps. I couldn't manage without her.
How do I know you'll keep your promise? If you do find this child, and if he is of royal birth, I want him brought here, to my court, where he'll receive proper training, fit for a prince.
Liar.
Please, Your Highness, take me at my word. As soon as we find this child king, we will return.
I could hardly believe it. We were free. King Magnus let us go on the condition that we would return and tell him everything we learned of the Child King. For the second time, we crossed the perilous mountains, this time headed north, away from the capital, towards a village called Nazra, over which the stars were aligned. Everything was coming together. There was just one problem. We didn't have the gifts. They were still hidden in a cave far from us and in the opposite direction. What is the use of continuing the journey without the gifts? I knew better than to ask Balta. She'd say that thing about the journey of the heart beginning when our outward senses fail us. For 2 days we pressed north. On the morning of our final travel, I was awake at dawn, excited and nervous at the same time. This was the day we would arrive in Nazra and find the child of the prophecy. That is, if the stars got it right. I tiptoed past Balta, who was still asleep, and walked out into a field of ripening flax. It was like standing in a purple sea. I turned my face to the sun, held my hands out wide, and inhaled as deeply as I could. When suddenly, a huge winged creature appeared out of nowhere. Its massive wingspan blocked out the sun. It was headed right for me. At first I thought it was Stu. I ducked. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. I looked down at my feet, and there was the pouch with the gifts. The pouch with the gifts. Yes! I couldn't believe it. I ran off to go show Balta. It must have been the great raven Keep, said Balta. She went on to explain that Keep is a spirit bird from the time of the beloved country, a time when spirit birds were not such a rare sighting, a time when people didn't make fun of you if you said you had seen one. Anyway, all that mattered now is that we had the gifts again. As we set off towards the last leg of our journey, Balta figured we'd be to Nazra by late afternoon. Nazra isn't much, to be honest. I thought there would be something special about this village, like maybe a glow or something. But the stars had led us to a town that was as ordinary and dusty and small as the hundreds we had passed on our journey. The only strange thing about Nazra is there didn't seem to be anyone there. Only airy desert trees and dusty boulders surrounding the village square where we stood.
Where is everyone?
I was just about to ask you. And then, the second surprise of the day. The boulders on the ground all around us suddenly sprang to life. Did I jump? Of course I jumped. I mean, when was the last time you saw boulders with arms and legs suddenly spring up off the ground in front of you? Well, when the dust settled, there were 9 kids standing there, bent over, laughing and high-fiving each other.
Sorry if we frightened you. We like to surprise strangers. It's fun. By the way, I'm Wen. My dad is a beekeeper in Nasra, and my mom is a 3rd-generation waterkeeper. I'm going to be a 4th-generation waterkeeper when I grow up. Anyway, welcome to Nasra.
I know with us. We work in the quarries, sweeping dust into sacks for the masons. That's what gives us our disguise. I'm Ada, twin sister of Jude. Our parents train in the resistance for census region number 8. When I grow up, I'm gonna kill through with my bow and arrows.
That is my sister. She's not as tough as she looks, though. She wakes the whole family up with her nightmares. I see her from the Eastern Reach. I've heard a lot about the Glungam, the warriors along the outposts along there. Maybe you could teach us some of your moves. We could use it to overthrow the Empire. We hate working in the quarries. Are we not a free people? Then why do we act like slaves of King Magnus?
Pardon, Jude. He's always so worked up, going on about the Empire. I'm Demas. My parents are both priests here in the Nape Annex here in Nasra. They don't like me getting all dusty like this. The real Nape's in the capital, of course. We only get to go once a year for pilgrimage. They don't like our ancient traditions, but we all know that King Magnus will have an revolt on his hands if he ever tried to stop us. I'm an only child. My parents were hoping for a boy, I think. No matter how hard I try, they never seem to notice me. By the way, what brings you here to Nasra?
We were looking for a prince, a young boy around your age. All we know about him is that he's a son of an Earth Mother.
In Nasra? I wish. This is not the capital, but we do have an Earth Mother, Madonna, and she does have a son, Isho. I guess that's who you're looking for? I'll go and find them if you like. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Magdala. This is my little sister, Kia. Our mother was a famous mender Trian. All the girls in Nasra trained to be menders. There's so many injuries in the quarries. Broken arms, open wounds, every day. So many. Pleased to meet you. Magdala's like my mother. Our real mother died when our little brother Kisho was born. Our father died in the quarries a few years ago. Magdala hates the thought of becoming a mender. She passes out at the sight of blood. What she's really good at is making wreaths and garlands out of flowers she finds in the meadow.
Kia is such a talker. She can talk all day if you let her. My name is Yahya. So Magdala doesn't like wounds? Well, I love them. I don't mind blood. My favorite thing to do is look at a wound and wonder what's wrong with it. Oh, by the way, I'm Isho's best friend.
Hey, I'm Isho's best friend. He always goes camping in the hills with me and my dad. We hunt torques. My mom makes the best torque and yam stew you've ever tasted.
Wen, Ada, Jude, Demas, Kia, Yahya, Pekka, and you're the only one we haven't met yet.
I'm Atticus. My dad works for the Empire's High Command. He oversees the collection of taxes. I help him sometimes, but what I really want to do is train under the Turquoise Guard. I'm not old enough yet, though. Oh, by the way, if you need a place to stay while you're here in Nasra, I'm sure you'd be welcome at our place.
I was just about to ask why an Empire kid was hanging out with the village kids when a woman entered the plaza. Her skin had the faint markings of bark from a tree and vines entangled in her hair. I knew straight away that this was the Earth Mother, Madonna, and peeking out from behind was a boy who I knew must be her son, Isho. He seemed terribly shy with none of the forthright nature of his group friends. Could this be the child spoken of in the prophecy? The one who would leave the people of the Earthlands out from under the heavy hand of the Empire and show them the way back to the beloved country? He looked, well, too ordinary. Maybe the stars had got it wrong.
Madonna, how happy we are to meet you. I am the astrologer Balta, and this is my apprentice Melky. We have traveled here from Outpost 229 in the Eastern Reach.
I've been expecting you. I knew Isho would not be left alone. Thank you for coming.
And you must be Isho. My son's name is Isho.
We have gifts for you, Isho, though we'll let your mother decide if now is the right time to give them to you.
If the stars say it's the right time, then who are we to argue? Besides, it's not very often we get such a special gift in our little town.
Yeah, all women!
They were the strangest gifts I'd ever seen. Isho hardly knew what to make of them. Nuggets of frankincense in knotted cloth? I told him that back in the temples of the Eastern Reach, frankincense was used for prayer. And a jar of myrrh? Everyone knows that myrrh is rubbed on dead bodies to prepare them for burial. The last of the gifts was a crown of raw gold. It was the perfect fit for Isho's head, but he didn't want to wear it. He started to put the gifts back in the bag when Adehl noticed something more.
What's this? There's something else in here. Some writing. Part of a scroll.
Well, what does it say?
3 gifts in the care of a motley band. 1 to turn the tempter's hand. The rejection of one new hope will stand. Over death the third brings life to land.
3 gifts in the care of a motley band. Well, we know what the 3 gifts are, but in the care of a motley band?
Maybe that's us. Maybe we're the motley band.
Secret mission, cool!
Cool. For you, maybe. But when has anyone ever asked me what I thought of this? So you're saying my mother entered into some agreement with a visitor from the spirit lands before I was even born? That's good for her and all. But what about me? When has anyone ever asked me what I wanted? What if I don't want to be a child king of some ancient prophecy? What if I don't want to be anyone's hero? What if I just want to be a regular kid like everyone else?
That night, Balta had one of her dreams, which are actually more like visions, where she can see forwards and backwards in time and across space all at once. Anyway, she shook me awake, saying that King Magnus had grown impatient, that he had unleashed Thu with orders that his gray dragon round up all the children of Census Region 9 and bring them to the palace dungeons. We had to warn everyone in Nazra. Most importantly, we had to get Madonna and Isho in hiding. Thu would be here in minutes.
Where should we hide?
How about under the bed?
No, it can't be in the house. That's the first place they'll look.
I have an idea. What about the boulder trip?
Perfect. Hide behind these boulders. I'll cover you with dust from the quarries.
The motley crew was amazing. They were brave and resourceful and worked together as a team to keep Isho safe. They ran through right out of town. Still, we all knew he'd be back, especially now that he had Isho's scent on his nostrils. Madonna and Isho needed to get out of Nazra, to hide somewhere, far away. Balta suggested a town in the northern frontier. She said she knew people there who would take him in and keep them safe. It was settled. We would take them as far as the border. They packed a few things and we left on foot that same night. There were turquoise guards everywhere. Everyone was on the hunt for Isho. We had to stay off the main road and could only stop for short breaks to eat and sleep in shifts. I showed Isho how to hold a telescope and how to read a star map.
The stars are trustworthy guides, Isho. They will never fail you.
Milky, why did you bring me those strange gifts? They were a bit odd, weren't they?
But you know what? I think that's a question we all ask about the gifts we've been given at some point in our lives. Why these gifts? Why me? I don't know much about these sort of things, but I like to think it shows that there's a pattern to the universe. After all, the gifts have to come from somewhere or they wouldn't be gifts. I like to think it shows that someone is out there saying, we're in this together, and this is how you can help.
What are your gifts, Milky?
Not sure.
I know. You're a pathfinder. And a good friend.
Saying goodbye to Isho at the border of the northern frontier was one of the hardest things I've ever done. He was in a lot of danger. I didn't know if I'd ever see the young prince again. When we got back to Nazra, all of Isho's friends came running out to meet us. They wanted to know if Isho and Madonna had made it safely to the northern frontier. They also had news. While we were away, a parcel had arrived for Balta from the outpost 229 in the Eastern Reach. Balta took the parcel and smiled. She told everyone to meet her here the next morning in the pit, our favorite hangout spot in an old part of the quarry.
When Milky and I first came to Nazra, we had gifts for only one child. Yet, from the moment that we met all of you, I realized my error. What's being asked of Isho is far too big a task for any one person to accomplish alone. It will require a whole community, pulling together, being there for each other through thick and thin. When we met you in the square that day, I understood this. So I sent a note with a cue of the homing pigeon back to the seers in the Eastern Reach. And these are the gifts that they sent. The gifts of destiny. The first gift, Jude, is for you, the Sword of Paths.
What? Me? According to legend, the Sword of Pax is the only sword that can defeat the Dragon Thew.
That's right. It's important work, and it has been entrusted to you, Jude. Adehl, for you, the Bender's Bow. To make a path where there is no path.
It's perfect. I don't know what to say.
Demas, for you, the Hushing Heart.
It's so beautiful.
To quell fear and calm the heart. When? This is for you.
Silver-handled dipping net. Wow.
It's the net of Sakar to lead you to the source. Yohia, this is for you. Elysian mud.
It's littler than an ounce.
The wounds it cures are only visible to the eye of the heart. For you, Pekka, the Shaman Stone.
It looks like an old lump of rock. Jude got a sword, Anna got a bow.
It's a key, Pekka.
A key? To where?
You'll know when you need to know. And Kia.
Me? You must be Magdala.
No, Kia. This gift is for younger sisters who often get left behind. Miriam's mirror, but it is no ordinary mirror.
What does it do?
It will let you see the others when you cannot be with them. And Atticus.
What? Me? But I thought...
You are as much a part of it as the others. Never forget that, no matter what happens. This is your gift. A writer's robe.
Whoa, I've heard stories about these ropes. Thrown like lassos by riders in the Eastern Reach. They fly like the wind and bind like steel.
The last of the gifts, Magdala, is for you.
I've never seen anything so beautiful in all my life.
It's an ever-after flower. It needs neither water, nor sun, nor soil to survive.
How is that possible?
An ever-after flower is nourished by the heart of the one to whom it belongs.
It's so beautiful I could almost cry.
The beauty you're looking at is your own, Magdala.
What about you and Malky?
I'm afraid it's time for us to say our goodbyes.
What? Will we ever see you again?
With you and our paths will cross again. Tell you what, shall we make a pact? For Isho and the beloved country.
For
Isho
and the beloved country.
It was the second goodbye in many days. We walked backward, waving as we went. What would be asked of each of them, I wondered. Would they have taken their gifts so eagerly if they knew? I only knew two things with certainty that day. One, they were stepping into a story much larger than their own. And two, as long as they had each other, everything would be all right. When the motley crew was out of sight, Balta and I veered south. Word had reached us that King Magnus was furious at Thew's defeat and preparing a full-scale assault on Nazra. We didn't want them to know we were headed back to the capital, into the heart of the Empire.
Open our hands, go through this journey with open our
4, Dino Trucks, take 2.
I apologize, my mic is not on. Restart.
Lovely.
Angus, I made the same mistake. There we go. That sounds a lot better. Okay, now the audio is actually rolling. Please play. Rolling. Yeah, you can start experimenting with the lenses and settings on it.
Beautiful. That is like butter. You were meant to be DOP. This is your job now. Sorry. Forget about taxes.
Sound speed?
Oh, we're gonna have all these bodies in the background.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, sorry, just one second. Sorry.
Let's wait until I say action, okay, Peanut?
We will stick to the plan now.
That's hilarious. That's going in the bloopers. Guard look. Reaction. Let's try it again. Light on. Slowly. You're still from the king.
I'm not old enough yet. Crap, I forgot my lines.
Reset.
Resetting. Black. That's my bad, I didn't tell you that. That was perfect otherwise though, honestly guys.
Aren't gifts if they don't come from any.
Okay. Let's take a pause here.
Yeah.
Dude, take this guy at them. Run!
Noise.
Okay, one more time, and I'm not gonna.
Who do you think?
Try not to get distracted by Ricardo.
I'm so sorry. You did great, Maddie.
We have traveled from outpost 229 in the Eastern Range. So glad we're here. Sorry. Isho and the beloved country.
Isho and the beloved. Okay, let's go back and try that again.
Still rolling or cut? Restart. I don't like the piano. I'm sorry. Don't cut.
Yes, open it.
With all due respect, Your Highness. With all due respect, Your Highness. Yeah, open it.
Okay, one more time.
Whoa, how did that? Oh.
Nice.
And the laughing was awesome. It felt so genuine and lovely. Just keep thinking.
I was thinking about the
The pickles. That's what I said. Just keep thinking about the pickles. Or the weird, or the next.
Reset.
Great work, one more time. And that.
May I cut?
This look was perfect. Okay, one more time.